9 months out is an extremely long period in football, having not even factored in the shorter maternity spells away from team training before and after birth. And then once your baby is born, you are no longer the same athlete as before, with regards to your body's physiological changes and even your new added responsibilities as a mother. But assuming you have the strongest of wills, accompanied by an undying passion for the beautiful game, and so you make a comeback shortly after pregnancy, what are the assurances that your club has not replaced you with someone better? These and many challenges lingered on the minds of women footballers in the past and still does today. For this reason, many women footballers postpone pregnancy until after their competitive careers. Their careers are relatively shorter anyway. And to avoid the temptation of having an unplanned baby, many women footballers take the radical approach to date their teammates as only they would understand their situation and conditions better. It's a women's football thing. However, recent women's football moms, San Diego Waves Alex Morgan and Chelsea Women FC's Melanie Leupolz, seem to have set the pace for a new era in professional women's football after making their respective comebacks to competitive football action just few months after their respective pregnancies. And just last month, Arsenal confirmed Swedish defender Amanda Ilestedt had recently taken seed and was expecting her first baby too. Great news, isn't it? But while we get ourselves basked in the all-sentimental side of football moms and their beautiful comeback stories, let us analyze all the various likely scenarios that come to play in this recurring theme here, the pros and possible cons of women's footballers becoming pregnant during their active seasons altogether. Arguments for why pregnancy during active seasons is worth the risk will also be made, beginning with the cons. Obviously, one of the biggest immediate challenges pregnancy poses for women's footballers during their active seasons has to be their club's refusal to pay them their supposed wages for the period that they were out. We understand that women's football has undergone some massive growth these last few years, but the game is still nowhere near the intended professionalism levels. This unfortunate scenario of clubs failing to perform their responsibilities to their players during pregnancy quickly brings to mind the Sara Bjork Gunnarsdottir and Olympique Lyonnais incidents of 2021, where Olympique Lyonnais refused to pay the midfielder her salary in full, from the time she first announced her pregnancy in March, up until her maternity leave officially started in September 2021. The situation was so bad that Sara had to resort to social media callouts and eventually, FIFPro to get Olympique Lyonnais to pay her the salary owed her, a total sum of €82,094.82, plus additional 5% interest. And to think this happened at Olympique Lyonnais, a club thought of to be the greatest women's football side in Europe. Now imagine what lesser clubs and their relatively lesser players have to contend with? You would be dazed to learn that the Sara Bjork Olympique Lyonnais case happened just a year after FIFA approved new rules, instructing clubs to pay 2/3 of players' contracted salary to them when they get pregnant. You see, women's football, in terms of audience and viewership, which basically translates into money, continue to grow steadily year after year, but the financial figures are still nowhere near as sustainable as in men's football. For context, Chelsea's Sam Kerr is currently the highest paid women's footballer in the world, but her annual salary is a little below £500,000, which isn't really much. And then, imagine you would not even be receiving in full this little salary of yours because you got pregnant? Sounds totally unfair, right? Still a long way to go here. Another challenge has to do with the club, this time, not refusing to pay wages but instead, getting someone to replace you while you are away. As in, what if by the time you returned to action from pregnancy, the club had already moved on from you? Like, they had replaced you with someone better, younger and fitter. Then, there would not be much you can do other than to find a new club where you would also now need to prove yourself and whatever salary you are going to request for. Sounds like too much work already, right? This is why the Melanie Leupolz and Chelsea story received warm worldwide reception, especially when Melanie Leupolz returned to full team participation only 3 months after delivering her newborn baby. Recounting her pregnant days, Melanie Leupolz revealed how much of help Chelsea, led by manager Emma Hayes, had been to her, to the point where the club even hired a pelvic floor specialist for the star midfielder to keep her in shape. For starters, for women athletes, the pelvic floor muscles are essential for continuity after pregnancy. They support the bladder, uterus, and bowel. A weakened pelvic floor for women's athletes legit means she would no longer have the strength and agility to play the sport. And pregnancy plus childbirth are chief causes of a damaged or weakened pelvic floor if not carefully attended to. So, for Chelsea to have hired a pelvic floor specialist for Melanie Leupolz that early in her pregnancy truly means, Emma Hayes counted on Leupolz post-pregnancy. which is rare because Emma and Chelsea absolutely had the funds and resources to opt for worthy replacement. But then, how many managers and clubs in the women's game today can understand and support their pregnant players all the way like Emma Hayes and Chelsea did for Melanie Leupolz? That takes us to the real conundrum for the still evolving women's game. Supposing every club were willing to support their players like how Chelsea did with Melanie Leupolz, and seriously, majority, if not all women's football players considered having babies during their active days, how sustainable do you think the whole situation would turn out to be for the development and revolutionization of the women's game? Would investors and sponsors happily honor their financial obligations to players and brands knowing perfectly well that the best players were going to be out for a while? Would they even take the gamble to wait for the athletes and hope that they would return in good shape like before, after childbirth? Clearly, even at its infant stage, you must already be thinking about certain new clauses to address all that, right? Yep, the idea of having a baby while in your active days carries with it a special feeling, but in the end, it would also take special clauses and considerations before they become a widely accepted reality for all parties involved. These clauses and considerations, even if ever taken at all, would definitely give the clubs and investors more power over the players than they already have. Why? Because then, the argument would be, if we are paying you for your services, then of course, we have at least earned the right to know when and when not you intend to do your job, and why, right? It is not as simple and straightforward as you might have initially thought. Let us now look onto the bright side. Obviously, when a player returns back to her club, even from injury, she becomes a sort of squad boost for her club. Now imagine returning to active football as a new mom? How cool! Not only would the feeling and moment be great for team bonding, but additionally, the new mother would become a source of inspiration for many, including her teammates. Talking about pregnancy and childbirth, Melanie Leupolz shared how her Chelsea teammates prepared a feast for her to welcome her newborn baby. She also added how the Chelsea girls in Chelsea as a club love to have the baby around the team environment, which is definitely such a great feeling to have in all honesty. Another thing, the science suggests that women athletes who return to playing after giving birth tend to have prolonged football careers than initially thought of. The reason being, new mothers, as a result of childbirth, develop significant increase in red blood cells, which in turn allows them to run for much longer. Speaking about club captain Katie Chapman shortly after winning the Women's FA Cup in 2018, Chelsea women's coach Emma Hayes put the longevity of her captain's career down to her having had children. Everybody who's become a mother tells me that it increases your red blood cells so you can run longer. You become better endurance runners, and Katie is insistent that because of the birth of her 3 children she runs more and more, said Hayes, who has become a mom herself. For sure, now we have concrete proof that having a baby does not have to be the end of the women's footballer's playing career, right? Magnificent. Pregnancy and the subsequent childbirth come with the added advantage of improving the athlete's headspace. Although motherhood has its own challenges that the new mother or athlete would look forward to navigate, it definitely provides the right motivation, as there always is something exciting waiting for you back home no matter the outcome of a football match. This has literally been USWNT star Alex Morgan's testimony as she describes motherhood as an exciting period in her life upon the birth of her daughter in 2020. According to Morgan, though challenging, the experience has made her a better player overall. Now that is definitely so cool, and we need more of these stories in the game. And now, we would like to end this piece by getting your thoughts on women's footballers mothering children during their active playing days. We get that it's 100% their right to decide, but as a boyfriend or girlfriend to your partner who is a pro women's footballer, how supportive would you be in an instance where you wanted a baby and she told you to wait until she retired? Let us know in the comments below.